Vikings were probably in part motivated to start their famous maritime expeditions on account of the huge wealth in silver coins, known as dirhams, being produced, particularly by the Islamic Caliphate in the Middle East. In the course of the 7th and the 8th centuries, Arab Muslims had been able to capture many former Roman provinces in both the Levant and North Africa. This included Syria, conquered in AD 640, a particularly wealthy province because of the mint at Damascus, which continued to operate and expand for its new owners. Though at first they used Roman designs, the Caliphate soon fashioned the dirham, a silver coin containing the Shahada, the Muslim declaration of faith in one God and Muhammad as his messenger. Through trade networks, these coins circulated steadily northwards, up the rivers of Eastern Europe like the Volga, Dniepr and Dniestr. A now out-of-date estimate gives an impression of the numbers involved. There were over 85,000 Arabic coins that have been found in Sweden, particularly on the islands of Gotland and Öland, with another 100,000 in Norse contexts in Russia and 700 and 5,000 from Norway and Denmark respectively. Many of these likely came through non-Muslim middlemen, like the Khazars or various Slavic or steppe peoples the Norse interacted with. But there is substantial written evidence from the Muslim world that demonstrates direct contact as well. However, whether the Norse realised that they were using Islamic coins with a religious message is harder to establish. The Anglo-Saxon king Offa, who ruled in the middle of the 8th century around the start of the Viking Age, had a coin minted which is clearly a copy of a dinar, the golden version of the Islamic silver dirham. It has the words Offa Rex, King Offa in Latin, but on the back, where normally the Shahada pledge is inscribed, the coin simply has squiggles meant to look like Arabic. This clearly isn't Offa proclaiming his faith in Allah. This is simply an Anglo-Saxon king with a global outlook copying a coin, perhaps to trade with the Islamic world, or more likely to emulate the wealth coming from the Far East. For the Norse, who unlike Offa had extensive direct contact with Muslims, there is some evidence to suggest they did understand what the Shahada on their coins meant. There are around 15,000 cases of graffitied coins in northwestern Europe, where the Shahada has been inscribed with runic inscriptions or quote-unquote magical symbols, and sometimes with other images of weapons or boats. Of a smaller sample that was studied, 12 contained the Thor's hammer, while 28 were inscribed with Christian crosses. The Norwegian archaeologist Egil Mikkelsen explains the possible significance. Islam must have been a well-known religion among Vikings travelling in the East. It is likely that they knew some of the main aspects of the Islamic doctrine and must surely also have been aware of the fact that the Arabic texts found on the coins conveyed messages from this religion. When our ancestors scratched Thor's hammers and crosses on the surface of the Arabic coins, they must presumably have wanted to show that they disassociated themselves with the other faith, Islam. During the Viking Age, people of Northern Europe tried, for some reason or other, to render the quotations from the Quran harmless, or to confront Allah with their own Norse or Christian god by scratching their symbols over the Islamic messages. This then appears to be evidence for Norse people who actively did not wish to associate themselves with the Islamic faith, even if they were more than happy to take and use their coins. Other artefacts found in Scandinavia may point in the other direction. A bronze vessel from Aska in western Sweden is of a type that archaeologists suggest was produced in either West Turkestan, Samarkand or Bukhara. It contains an Arabic inscription. El-Fadl el-Akmal wa la san kabisa lillah. The most perfect and beneficent and most beautiful gift is for God. Archaeologists believe this inscription was added at a later date than the vessel's production, and by someone unfamiliar with Arabic letters. An almost identical vessel with the same inscription was found at Bertby on the island of Öland, and were likely made by the same person. In Islamic contexts, such vessels were often used for ritual ablution, wudu, compulsory before praying at the mosque. However, in the burial context in Scandinavia, there is no indication they were used for this purpose at all, as they were found filled with mostly Arabic coins and buried in richly adorned graves that cannot have belonged to devout Muslims, as Islam forbids being buried with grave goods. Several artifacts found in Scandinavia contain the name Allah. Most recently, media reported on several garments from Uppsala and Berka containing the Arabic names Allah and Ali, God and the name of Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali. He is particularly revered by Shia Muslims, and his name is found together with that of God in early Shia mystics' tombs and books. However, the fact that Allah appears in mirrored letters suggests it was copied by someone unfamiliar with the correct orientation. It also lacks the phrase Wali Allah, friend of Allah, which accompanies all of these inscriptions when found in mainstream Shia contexts from the period. That again suggests it was copied incorrectly by an outsider. As the archaeologist who made the discovery summarized, the possibility that some of those in the graves were Muslim cannot be completely ruled out. We know from other Viking tomb excavations that DNA analysis has shown some of the people buried in them originated from places like Persia, where Islam was very dominant. However, it is more likely these findings show that Viking Age burial customs were influenced by Islamic ideas such as eternal life in paradise after death. Not everyone agreed. Stephanie Mulder, Associate Professor of Islamic Art and Architecture at the University of Texas in Austin, highlighted serious issues with the chronology. The boat burials in which these textiles were found dated to the 9th and 10th centuries, but the kind of Kufic Arabic script archaeologists identified wouldn't develop for another 500 years after the Viking Age. Writing on Twitter, Professor Mulder stated, "It's a style called square Kufic, and it's common in Iran, Central Asian architecture after 15th century. She continued that even if these textiles inscribed with an earlier form of Kufic, the word on Larsson's drawing doesn't spell Allah at all, but rather spells Illah, which does not make sense in Arabic, as this is a form of a word that cannot stand on its own but must be embedded in a longer sentence." She identifies a difference between the photograph of the textile and Larsson's drawing, which added extra strokes to make the form Allah. There are other artifacts that undisputably do have the word Allah written in Arabic on them, found in Scandinavia. In 2015, a finger ring made of gilded silver and a violet amethyst stone was reported on from the Viking Age town of Berka. What set it apart was the inscription in the jewel reading Allah, which has been interpreted as for or to the approval of Allah. Further analysis showed the ring to be coloured glass rather than amethyst, and the material of the band to be silver alloy. The surface showed no signs of wear, with the original file marks in place suggesting an object that didn't pass through many middlemen in an extensive trade network, but rather a direct transfer. This is in stark contrast to the dirhams, which show lots of signs of wear and tear. As the ring was found in the grave of a woman, suggestions range from the idea that either the woman came from or had been to the Caliphate, or perhaps had been given the ring by someone who was or had. Yet again, the form of the Kufic script is faulty and probably an imitation rather than the genuine product. This would point to the wearer being someone who could appreciate the Kufic style but couldn't read it, and lessens the likelihood that the ring bearer came from the Caliphate. Arabic written sources record rings of this type commonly being given as gifts from Muslim traders, and then particularly to women. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, then you can check out the full-length 40-minute episode, which will be linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.